Hello, I'm the Casual Veteran Gamer. In the video today I'm going to be going through the Drow race and the two sub-races, Lolth-Sworn Drow and Seldarine Drow. In terms of the features, at level 1, both types of Drow have exactly the same stats, features and cantrips and everything. So same base racial speed of 30 feet, they're immune to sleep, dexterity +2, charisma +1, rapier, short sword, hand crossbow, and proficiency, superior dark vision, and cantrip of dancing lights. The ability score bonuses here lend themselves to creating, let's go through this, fighter maybe for the dexterity, ranger for dexterity, rogue for dexterity, the warlock for charisma, and even dexterity for the armor class, but not really the wizard. So Drow it's quite a versatile race in terms of being able to be chosen to play several different classes. Then going back to the race, you get a few weapon proficiencies. These aren't all that amazing because most of the classes that you would pick Drow for get these proficiencies anyway for the most part. So these aren't really something to pick Drow for. Superior dark vision. This just makes it a bit easier to play the game, to be honest. It's not really needed. And then we get Dancing Lights cantrip. Now, had you asked me a few days ago what I thought about this cantrip, I was not that impressed. But I've actually been using it today and yesterday a little bit more than normal. What I do like about this is that it is a bonus action to cast. So in the first round of combat, if you're fighting somewhere underground, using Dancing Light on your enemies means that they are not in the shadows, so you don't get disadvantage on your attacks. So the Dancing Lights cantrip is actually useful even if you've got dark vision, because also other members of your party might not have dark vision anyway. And also when you're just exploring underground, it's just a bit nicer to have that little bit more light. Even if your characters can see, I feel like it's just visually more appealing when there's brighter light. So I'm going to go through and show you what you get at each level for the different Drow. Level 2 very quickly, and then level 3. I won't show you level 4. No subrace gets anything at level 4. So next thing will be level 2, which will be very quick. Just going to very quickly show you what happens to Drow at level 2, which is nothing. All the choices here are from the Warlock, as in the class. Nothing to do with being a Lolth-Sworn Drow. Move on to the other Drow here. Seldarine, was it Seldarine? Seldarine Drow. Nothing, just to do with the fact that he is a rogue. Here we are at level 3 on the Drow. This is the Lolth-Sworn Drow, and at level 3 we get Faerie Fire. Faerie Fire is a good spell to have. It can give advantage on creatures within the area of the spell, though they do get a chance to have a saving throw. And if they pass the saving throw, they don't get advantage on them. Also, it makes targets visible if they're invisible. The only minor downside is that it requires concentration, so you've got to be careful of that. So that's the Lolth-Sworn Drow. Here we're on the Seldarine Drow. Nah, not Sworn, just Seldarine. And also we've got Faerie Fire here. So it doesn't matter which Drow you take, you get the same benefits. It's just more of a flavour thing, whether you want to be Seldarine or Lolth-Sworn. I want to show you a use of Faerie Fire here. So I'm in tactical view. I've pressed O on the keyboard and I've got one of my Drow and I've selected Faerie Fire already. The big white circle here is the range at which I can cast the spell from where I'm currently standing. However, I can choose anywhere I want, and you can see there's almost what looks like a ghost showing where my character will move if I cast the spell where my cursor currently is pointing. So if I go here, you can see my character will move down towards the bottom kind of right of the screen. I'm going to cover 3 enemies and 1 ally. One person's lying down. So let's show you. And because I'm creeping, no one will see me get there. I've got all my other characters creeping as well. So let's have a look then. Everyone's surprised. Now I've come out of tactical view. We can see all 3 of them failed their saving throw. Let's see if we can spot that here. So it doesn't show their rolls. it just says that they've got the condition Faerie Fire. Even the water barrel has got Faerie Fire. Now if I examine one of the enemies, Faerie Fire, shed dim light, incoming attacks have advantage, cannot be invisible. So now all my characters have advantage on attacks against all of these things that are in purple. I've got the Faerie Fire condition. Of course, I am concentrating on this though, so should I get hit or cast another spell that requires concentration, the spell will drop. So as a warlock, I would quite often like casting Hex, but shouldn't do that. It uses concentration, and I will lose Faerie Fire. So if you use your character to cast Faerie Fire, you've got to make sure that you really do want to focus on it and not anything else. But it's a good spell, nevertheless. So if I cast Eldritch Blast, we can see that I've got high ground attacking from shadows, player advantage on attack. That advantage on attack comes from Faerie Fire. So anything that's got this kind of purple, bluish, shimmering outline has Faerie Fire on it. This goblin up here does not, because this goblin was out of range. So yeah, it's a good spell. Only get to use it once per long rest though. So that's it for this long rest for the day. And I'll now move on to my final thoughts on the Drow. Okay, time for the final thoughts on the Drow. So I'm quite impressed with the race. They get immunity to sleep, which is useful because some of the lower level casters do cast sleep, and I find it so frustrating when my characters that are not immune to sleep suddenly fall over for a round. Like, ugh. I like that they've got superior dark vision. The bonus stats are good because they apply to quite a lot of the classes. They get a couple of spells, both of which have their uses, Dancing Lights and Faerie Fire. I would say that their weapon proficiency is not that great. You know, it's not good compared to the other elves. The other elves get proficiency in short sword, long sword, short bow and longbow, which can be useful for some of the classes that don't naturally get access to them. One thing to bear in mind when you're playing a Drow though is how your characters will interact with other people in the world. And it's actually very different. Not every single encounter, not every time you speak to an NPC, but some of them do make comments. Some of them are even fearful of you, and your choices in the conversation options are different, and there might be slightly different outcomes. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's definitely a different style of playthrough when you do have a Drow, playing as a Drow. So I think that sums it up really. Good race, nothing too bad about them, and you will experience some different social encounters. So if you found the video useful or interesting, please leave a like. Please let me know also if I've got anything wrong, or you disagree with any of my points, or maybe there's something I didn't cover but should have done. Any subscriptions are greatly appreciated, and I'll see you in the next one.